welcome friends once again to the NPTEL MOOC module on handling large scale unit level data using Stata. We are at the verge of understanding panel data, and so you have already given the background of the panel data in the previous two lectures. Now, in the last three lectures of the entire module, we will be giving you the hands on experience of dealing with the panel data. So, this particular lecture is dealt with a form of panel, but clearly called as pooled cross-sectional data. So, the meaning of pooled cross-sectional and panel and their differences we already given, but some other details we are going to explain you in this module. So, when we think of panel or that is longitudinal data, it comes to our mind that we actually follow the same unit which gets repeated in different time period. So, this actually means that we will follow the same set of units of the observation over time, maybe of T1 period, T2 period and so on. While we discuss the pooled cross section, we take random samples in different time periods. So, our samples are completely random, it is not repeated. Okay. So, for example, when we take enterprise performance data or we take the performance data on enterprises, that is A, B, C in T1, and we will take the same performance data on enterprises, that is D, E and F in T2, then the enterprises we are referring are not same, they are different in different time period. So, it is not repeated, the data are same, that means in terms of the information they are same, I mean in terms of the variable they are same, but the samples are different. So, like we have different enterprises in our example. The key difference between pure panel data and pooled cross section is that the unit on which the data are collected is actually different. Units are to be compared. The fact that the random samples are collected independently of each other suggests that they need not be equal size. The data can be pretty much analyzed like ordinary cross sectional data, except that we must use dummies to differentiate the time period or the kind of changes in the enterprises over time. So, dummy method is going to be very useful in this setup. An important difference between pooled cross section and panel data is that with panel data the effects represents changes over time within entities, but in pooled one we can only talk about changes in population prevalence of attributes, but we cannot talk about individual changes over time. These kind of data mainly found in survey data sets, and for many surveys a cross sectional sample is drawn periodically. These samples are drawn from the same population. Pooling of two cross section data makes sense when the relationship among variables are unlikely to have changed notably. So, if there is no such major changes expected, then pooling is generally preferred. For pooling cross sectional data analysis, we need to construct a time indicator variable, that is dummy variable, with let it be value 0 and 1 or 1 or 2 and so on by any binary form to define the dummy to indicate time period 1 and time period 2 can be done. Now, when it is of interest, a year indicator can also be interacted with another explanatory variable, that is x, of interest to examine whether its effect change in that year compared to other period. For example, in the enterprises cases, when we take the enterprise is taking loan in one period and taking loan in another period, what is the difference? in terms of enterprise performances. In that case, the kind of loan or credit with the time factor interacted with the time factor has important interpretation. So, interaction dummy could be considered while making a pooled cross sectional data over time. Now, let us understand the construction of the pooled cross sectional data. Now, we are considering NSS data that provides cross section data periodically, as we already discussed in NSS 67th that was in 2010-11 and 73rd round of NSS of 2015-16 are going to be discussed now. So, in these two rounds we are emphasizing on the unincorporated non-agricultural enterprises, which we already discussed in earlier modules as well. So, especially we have the interest variables like enterprising types such as manufacturing, trade and other services, but make sure that be assured that this data does not consider the construction sector. So, now coming to the say survey, this is conducted in every 5 years, and since the data provided by NSS is based on sample survey, wherein the same sample may not have been surveyed the next year, and the sample size may also vary from 1 year to another year, but the samples are drawn from the same population. What do you mean by same population? We wanted to mention that the population base, the enterprising base of concern for the survey were taken from the same districts or the in India. So, the base of the population is same, but the random selection of the samples are different. The information collected in both the rounds are almost same, especially relating to the variables of concern. And besides that, the 7th round added some extra information. Some of them we discussed earlier in our earlier modules. So, coming to the nature of variable, as we already discussed, that they are similar in both the data sets. So, pooling of data sets especially requires same variables in almost in some same order. So, new variable that is created is the time, and we wanted to capture the time effect of other variables in after pooling the data. Now, empirically we wanted to explain this pooling of data set using the data both the rounds of data. Now, the objectives of the data, the objective of pooling would also be explained while explaining the pooling. The filtration and cleaning of data should also be done on the basis of the objectives we are targeting. Here our objective is to understand the factors which affect the possibility of women being a necessity entrepreneur. So, we already clarified that whether necessity or opportunity based entrepreneur, we are going to also suggest you an article which we published in the standard journal, ABDC ranks journal. You can refer at the end, we are going to suggest that. Okay. So, our interest here is to identify the important factors. All right. The same example was also given during our lecture on binary choice model, especially on the week which we discuss about qualitative variables, okay, limited dependent variable models also. So, you please follow that and find out other clarification if you have desired to understand. Now, as the data sets are on enterprises, we first filter our data for only women entrepreneurs, since our objective is to discuss on necessity women entrepreneur. So, we are emphasizing and filtering on that angle. So, the next important step is to get the variables of our interest which affect the women entrepreneur to be necessity driven. Now, there is a note here, please mark it carefully. Please make sure that the variables are with same name in both the data sets, that is important. Variables should be with the same name. Number of observation may vary from one year to another, because the data are survey data, and keep in mind that the samples are not same in both the data sets. So, since different periods are considered, so samples need not be same, but variables with the same name must carry. Now, as we already mentioned that our dependent variable is women entrepreneur. So, enterprise type is our name of the variable. So, 1 is the code if it is of necessity type, and 0 if it is opportunity type. The other variable that we already given emphasis of this aspect earlier, like some continuous variables we have, dummy variables in the model we have, categorical variables we have. Some random variables, let me mention, like we discuss about enterprise age, and we also take the age square of that variable. Then from the dummy, like sector dummy, mixed activity dummy, and so on. Some categorical variable like social categories, bank accounts, etc. You go through and you will certainly find out how these variables affect the enterprise type. Okay, we from the pooled we can cross check and verify. And coming to the steps, the necessary steps involved in the construction of pooled data and their explanation, we in this slide we are mentioning most important 5 steps. Launching the data in Stata. Okay, we start with 67th round data, and then actually you can do on your own, but I am just telling you these important step, and whichever is required direct operation and explanation, we will use the software. Now, you simply open the 67 round data, which already we guided earlier. It contains 40,772 observation, they are women entrepreneurs. And now, filter the variables of your interest and rename them, like the variable which we already listed, you can also change on your own, but try to give the name same both the rounds. Okay, and create a new variable. Now, this variable is not there in the data. We need to create a generate a variable, that is year, since 2 time period, that is 67 and 7/3 we are fooling. Okay, we are actually appending. Only one variable is missing from the data, that is year. Time period. So, time we can give it year is equal to 0, generate a variable year equal to 0, you can create it for the first period, that is 67th round. Now, we can save the data set with the name pool 67 data. We will also show it, and we will also provide the sample of it for your easy understanding. Now, I think it is there. I am not going to open it, but I will just show it to you, like here. Okay, so it is there. Now, pooled 67th we will provide this, and we will also show it once to you, pooled 73rd round. Okay, so that is going to be explained to you shortly. Now, I am just giving you the clarification of the concepts. Now, similarly, we open the another round data, that is 7/3, and we again repeat all those 5 steps that have been already mentioned here. Now, then 2 to 5 steps, that is very important. And to mention here that after filtration, the women enterprises here for us for the explanation is of 34,930. Okay, and we now again generate the same year as the variable name to be 1, because this is another time period data. And now we will save with the pool 7/3 data. Okay. Now, we are not following the above steps as we have already filtered out our data. The data which we have kept here for explanation, we have already done all those steps. So, we are not repeating each step that we have mentioned. Now, onwards we are going to experiment it in front of you. Like we are opening the data, that is pooled data of 67 round. Let me open that first for you. It is here. Now, I am just going to open it. It is here. So, the pooled 67 data, as I told you, it has already been opened now. Okay. Now, what I will do, I will go by, you just read the red color for the text, that is for preparing a full data set based on 2 different rounds of NSS, we need to append those data sets, like 2 data sets we are discussing 67 and 7/3, we need to append having the exactly same variables, then only it will simply append, and basically it is a vertical appending procedure. The observation of 67s will be from the beginning, and at the end part the 7/3 observation will be simply appended or added vertically. Now, so append is the right word. Add, sometimes you may infer that is a numerical operation, but actually we are simply trying to say that it gets kept in different rows of the data. We will show everything right now. So, now what we are doing, we are trying to show you the append, since we have already used the data 67s are already opened. So, now you are opening append using 7/3 data. Now, the location of it is here. It is the location, we are copying the location of it. 67 already opened. Now, we are simply connecting the so we are adding the 7/3 round. Okay, 7/3. So, it is here. All right. Now, we have appended the data. Now, you can check the number of the observation, especially the cases, has been added, increased to 75,702. Okay, and the variables are same, that those are 15 we have carried from the 67th round. Okay, and since the number of variables are of 15 in both the rounds, so number of variables remain same, and our observation our observation increased by another the number of observation in the next round. So, these are the data we have added, okay, and we have appended. Now, just to show you that year variable we have already created, and we have deliberately made it a dummy one to identify that 0 indicates your 67th round data, and wherever 1 is there, 1 indicates your 73rd round data. So, suppose I just wanted to mix like age of the enterprise times year effect of it, okay, or location of the enterprise and year effect. If I simply multiply this data, I can find out the location with year effect on the dependent variable. So, there is a better interpretation possible. We will let you know in our PPT. Okay. Now, let me go through the exact steps that we have already followed. Now, after pooling, one thing for sure we have to save it, save the data with the name, a convenient name that can identify pooled 67th as well as 7/3 .dta will come by default, since DTA file has already been opened. So, you please take a name with a convenient identification. So, 63rd and 7/3 both are actually shown here. You can take any other name, but for your clarification we are just trying to give some suggestions. So, now as we mentioned, the number of observation has been increased already after pooling. All right. So, now analysis can be done. We can do n number of explanation, but some just sample we have done those explanation many times. Likewise, we do the earlier statistical operations. Okay, we can simply do we do the same thing. We can do describe. Okay, simply okay. simply describe can actually clarify. Okay, it gives the information about the kind of storage, the byte or float or numeric or string, okay, and also the value label as well as variable label can also be clarified. Now, similarly, like the 15 variables we have already appended. So, the 15 variable information will come. Now, similarly you can do summarize, you can just go through on your own, but I am not operating here much, but I think it is too simple to understand. Just to mention that since our dependent variable is binary in nature, because we already pointed out that it is whether the enterprise is of necessity type or opportunity type. So, so we can apply either either of the three models we discuss in the binary choice model, LPM model, logit or probit model. So, you go to that section once again and verify, and I am sure you will enjoy going through the data. In our binary response model, we have already checked the appropriate model and it will be very useful for you. Now, the same model we can do it here, we can operate it here just for your another round of confidence. Let me do it. Let me just do it once to that particular model, just for your confidence only. Usually we suggested logit or probit based on some logic, and we will 17 operate it here with the same data, okay, and the result is in front of your screen. Okay. Now, it is I think working. Now, the result has come. All right. So, accordingly different variables and the interpretation, everything is there, and our dependent variable is enterprise type, as I told you. Now, enterprise age, enterprise square of that age, whether it is significant or not, and about pseudo R square is not that important, we already discussed during our lecture. You go through and surely you can able to interpret it. Okay. So, let me proceed further. Now, coming to that time dummy, we have already discussed that. You can we can have interaction dummy also, like interaction dummy, like we wanted to get the change in relationship between outcome and predicted variable through time. Basically, wherever you multiply the time effect, it will give important information. But since dummy has already been introduced, so the degrees of freedom gets reduced in the model. So, we need to be careful about that while analyzing the dummies. Now, most importantly, if you wanted to understand the model very correctly and the interpretation, everything is there in this link. This is our article published in Global Business Review in this year 2020. Okay. So, you download and read, I am sure you can find better interpretation and a systematic interpretation of it. With this, I think I thank you all. Will look forward to your involvement for the next lecture, because next lecture we are going to give you a systematic guidance on fixed effect, panel effect discussions. Okay. Thank you so much.